Okay, let's see what we can do with the landscape image here. So with the landscape image, click on zoom to fill. Okay, with the landscape image, there's some things that I can do here. I'll go to the basic tab and I'll do my basic adjustments that you would have normally done either in Lightroom, but here you can also do them in Adobe Camera Raw. So I'm going to do my little tip trick, hold the shift key, double click on blacks, that will set my black point. Hold the shift key, double click on whites, that will set my white point. It's a little too bright, so now I'm going to go ahead, take my highlights a little bit darker. I'm going to take my shadows a little bit darker still. And I could increase the vibrance and that will brighten up my blues and greens. Now I want you to please be very mindful and careful and don't overdo your colors. This is not a real color of a sky. This is not a real color of green desert bushes. It's way over too saturated. So pull back and just enhance the colors just a smidge or just a little bit, or try to adjust your colors to what you remember them being out in the wilderness. If you need to, you can desaturate a little bit. But if you're going to saturate, you will start seeing all these kind of very extreme bright oranges, and it looks unnatural. So try to minimize the over-processed look. And then of course here you can add a little bit more texture to see a little bit more of these edges of the bushes. You can also add a little bit clarity, and that will increase the mid-tone contrast of the image. And that would be my basic adjustment for a landscape image. Now here we have an underexposed image. Here we have an underexposed image, and there's also some color correction that's needed. So once again, I'll go to the basic tab, I'll click on my white balance tool, and I'll click on the white backdrop. So that neutralized the image a bit. And once again, I'll hold the shift key, double click on whites, double click on blacks. That will set my white points and black point. And if I open up my shadow slider, I'll be able to see more detail in her face. But if I zoom into her face, maybe not quite that big, but 100%, I can see that there's noise around her. And you see all this blue that comes up? That's because I still have a little bit of clipping in the deep shadows, but I don't think it will matter for this image because I'm interested more in her facial expression. So when I open up the shadows, I can see that I have a lot more noise. Noise always occurs in the shadow areas of the image. And so if I reduce the noise in the detail tab right here, I can also sharpen here. I can also open up these panels, and then I can see even more options within these panels. But let's take a look at sharpening here. So what I like to do is I like to remove the color in the noise. I'll zoom in a little bit more to 200 maybe. There we go. Oops, did not want to do that. Okay, hold the space bar and you'll be able to move your image. So you see, I can see all kinds of noise here and also some color in that noise. So what I like to do is take my color noise reduction and move it up quite a bit to about 70 or so. And so that eliminates all these color artifacts in the noise. And then I'll take the noise reduction and I will blend that noise. Now look what happens if I move this noise reduction all the way to the other end. See, she's starting to look like a watercolor painting. That's not what you want. So I will move that back and blend it just a little bit where I can enhance the image without over blending it. So about 30, I would say that would look appropriate. I can still see the little diamond in her lip. So that would be noise. So now what I can do here is if I wanted to take all of these images, and by the way, I'm holding Command minus, and that's how I can zoom out and also zoom in, or Control minus, plus or minus on PC. Now, I could select a few of these images by holding the Command key and clicking on a few images that I want, and then I could choose to open, or I could just click on Done, and all of these images will go right back into Adobe, into the same folder, and I can still view them in the bridge with the adjustments. Or I could select all of them and choose to open them all, and they will all open up in Photoshop. So those could be the options. Now, another option we have here, so if I click on select all, so I'll select all of them, and I click on this option right here, it's a little arrow down, click on that. And what this does, it opens up the, it's almost like the export module in Lightroom. It allows me to export the files all at once, kind of the same way that we do in Lightroom. And here you would select the location where you want to choose them to go, to save in a new location or the same location, and you can select the folder as to where you want to export them to, and you can rename them here, and you can also change the numerical number of the frames, and here are all the different file formats that you could choose. And be mindful over here, the quality is not arranged between 0 and 100% like it is in Lightroom. What we have here is quality of maximum of 10 to 12, or you literally can just change that to 12, and that will be the maximum or best compression for a JPEG. You also have your color space option here. You can go to sRGB or Adobe RGB or ProPhoto RGB, and you can click on save, and they will all be processed all at the same time as a batch for those specifications. I'm going to cancel that. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to select a few of these images. So I'll go ahead and select, for example, the flowers, command, the phone, and let's say the landscape image and the architectural shot, and maybe the portrait. And I will choose to say open. And what will happen when I click on open, they will all launch into Photoshop and will open up in tabs. Okay, so if I'm working with this image in Photoshop and now I want to save it, I could click on File, Save As, and if this is a work in progress image, because I haven't finished it yet, I'll click File, Save As, and this is also a new feature in Photoshop where it allows you to save images to your cloud documents, which I never do because I don't have enough space on that cloud. I always save back to my computer. So I would suggest to click on this Don't Show This Again, and it will always go to your computer location. I just wanted you guys to see the splash screen, so I'll go ahead and click on Save my to my computer. And now it opens up my computer interface, and I can select whichever folder I want it to go into. And notice how it says .psd right here. So this is going to be a Photoshop file. So when you guys save it as a Photoshop file, it's very important just to save it as a standard Photoshop file. Don't choose things like Photoshop EPS. Don't choose anything like Photoshop PDF or Photoshop RAW. None of those, not Photoshop DCS 1 or 2. It's just the basic standard Photoshop option. Nobody uses all these other options unless they're for very specific need, which I actually don't know what that would be. So it's always Photoshop. Now from here, you can also save to a JPEG file if you wanted to, but there are better ways to save as a JPEG. You can also save it here as a TIFF file if you wanted to. But as far as Photoshop goes, it's just basic standard Photoshop. And you would click on save, and that file would save. I'm going to not save it. And I'm going to close all these files all together. Now, to close a file one by one, it's Command W, and then it will ask you save or don't save, and you'll have to click on don't save or save. Or you could click on close all, and it will ask you to save or not save. And in this case, I don't want to save, so I'm going to say apply to all, don't save. So then it will just close them all up. And they, of course, they come right back into my, or there still are, my raw file, there still are in the original folder where I initially grabbed them from. Now I want to show you a little bit of batch processing here. So here, these are images that were all shot in the raw format, and they actually been processed. How do I know that? It's because I have this little adjustment button right here. It appears like a little adjustment symbol, which means all of these images have been processed already, but they're still raw. So if I select all of them and open them up in Adobe Camera Raw, so Command R, that will open them all up. And let's say I select this color checker, and I want to adjust all of the images together to this particular color checker. Now notice I have two different shoots here. I have one shoot that was shot in studio, and then another shoot that was shot outside. So if I want to adjust all of these images to the same settings, I'll go ahead and select the batch. So notice they all are selected. I will choose the, now I want to adjust all of these images to this particular color checker. So I selected the color checker, then I'm going to hold my Command or Control key, select the other two on the bottom, and select all the other ones on the top. And then if they are all selected, I could use my white balance tool and just click on the neutral gray color. And you see, so I purposely clicked on a different colors just so you guys can see it. Look what happens if I click on the pink. See, they all turn green. Why? Because the opposite color of magenta pink, pink magenta color would be green. So if I click on the neutral gray, they all change together. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because if you shoot something that it's in exactly the same lighting conditions, what you can do is, so let's say I will select this image right here. Now everything got deselected, so I have to select them again. So let's say I'm working, I don't need the color checker, so I skipped that one. I'm working with this image and I want to adjust the exposure a little bit lighter. So I don't know if you saw it, but all of them changed lighter. I'll show you a very drastic adjustment. I'll go really deep shadow. See, now they're all adjusted at the same time. So this is how we can batch process. Now, of course, if you have an image that was shot outside, you will have to individually adjust them because it was shot in a different lighting condition. So this was already previously adjusted, but if you want to warm up everything all together, see, they will get warmer. I'll go ahead and warm them up a lot. See, now they're all warm all together, but I don't want to warm them up quite as much. And once again, if I wanted to export them all together, I could click on the export button, select all my settings right here, and click on save, and they will go to the appropriate folder that's been chosen. I'll click cancel on that. I'll just click on done. We are done with the raw processor.